Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest Laura-Gassner-Otting, and she's here today to share with us her new book, Limitless: How to Ignore Everybody, Carve Out Your Own Path, and Live Your Best Life. Now, Laura helps people get unstuck and achieve extraordinary results. As a founder of Limitless Possibility, Laura collaborates with entrepreneurs and investors to push past the doubt and indecision that consigns great ideas to limbo. Laura's 25-year resume is defined by her entrepreneurial edge. She served as a presidential appointee in Bill Clinton's White House, helped shape AmeriCorps, left a leadership role at a respected nonprofit firm to expand the startup execsearch.com. So let's welcome to the show, Laura-Gassner-Otting.
Hey, Marianne, it is great to be here.
What a pleasure it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. I mean, once I saw this, I was like, oh, we've got to chat. This looks amazing.
Well, when you have a book that's called Limitless: How to Ignore Everybody, Carve Your Own Path, and Live Your Best Life, it gets a lot of attention.
It does. It does. Well, and so I have to ask, what inspired you to write this book?
It's a really interesting question because I had transitioned from having a 20-year career in executive search, having sold my firm to my team. And then I kind of had this, I'm not really sure who I am, right? When I'm no longer Laura-Gassner-Otting, CEO of this company. And so I started a website, laura-gassner-otting.com, and I just started blogging on the website. And a friend called me up and said, you should do a TED Talk about one of those blog posts you wrote. And she happened to be the executive producer of TEDx Cambridge. And so I had never really wanted to be a speaker. I was not really necessarily all that interested in the big stage, but she had talked me into doing it. My kids had talked me into doing it. And 6 weeks later, there I was on the TEDx stage. And I gave a talk that got some attention, and that attention got me offers to speak for money. And so I didn't know that was a job. And I started traveling around the country, traveling around the world, really, speaking on different stages. And I started to become maybe a little less than confident that I belong there, this imposter syndrome, which is ironic because I do a lot of speaking about confidence. And so I called a publisher and asked if I could write this book, and he loved the idea of it. And so the idea was sort of born out of the 20 years that I had spent interviewing people and learning what made them really happy in their careers, actually happy, not just happy in the way that everybody else defines happy. And it really sort of be this. I didn't ever really plan to write the book. I didn't really ever plan to become a speaker, and sort of one thing led into the other, and here it is.
And here you are. It's so great to see your book get such great reviews. I know that you've been on the Today Show. You've got a lot of folks chatting about it because people want to have this information. They want to learn how to get unstuck. And you talk about that in your book.
I do. What I learned when I interviewed, I probably interviewed over 1,000 people over the course of these 20 years in executive search. And they were individuals who came out of nonprofits, out of for-profits, out of the public sector. And what I saw was time and time again that people they had checked off all the boxes along everybody else's path to everyone else's definition of success. And then they looked around one day and they just went, well, is this all there is? If I'm happy on paper, why don't I really feel happy in real life? Why do I feel stuck in this cage that I created, with the right job and the right spouse and the right house and all of those things? And it's because we never stop along the path to say, well, is this my definition of success? If I'm going to go for all of this stuff, I'm going to work this hard, if I'm going to do everything that I'm supposed to be doing, is it going to get the thing that I actually want? Or am I just building a life that really is someone else's life?
Oh, I so get that. As a kid, I was told that I was really good at art, and it's told, artists don't make any money. You can't do that. You should go in the medical field. And giving that a few years, I found out that blood, guts, and gore make me pass out. So it's a bad career choice for me.
Absolutely. And it all starts with the idea that if artists don't make any money, then that defines success as making lots of money. Mm-hmm. And it may be that, obviously we all have the need to make number, right? That's table stakes. My bank won't take good karma in exchange for mortgage, no matter how many times I ask. But if you're the kind of person who likes to travel to, super sophisticated urban cosmopolitan metropolises on long weekends and stay in fancy hotel rooms and eat beautiful room service breakfast, then you're going to need a lot of money. If you're the kind of person who likes to wake up in the morning and make that breakfast over a fire that you've built on the side of a beautiful lake out in the middle of the wilderness, that's actually not going to take a lot of money, but it's going to take a lot of time. So defining success as money, artists don't make a lot of money, it actually sets you up to create a life where if what you want that work to provide for you is the campfire versus the room service breakfast, then you're actually not finding your own version of success.
Well, and I love how you also share about your personal journey of being, in the fourth grade and a teacher telling you you're going to be a great attorney.
Yeah, she told me I was really argumentative, so I should be a lawyer. I told her she was wrong, of course, because, I was argumentative. But then I spent the next 10 years creating a path, an educational path that put me in law school. And I'd graduated early from college. I'd skipped kindergarten because I knew to share and to stack blocks. And so I was 20 years old, sitting in my first year of law school, looking around and thinking, "What am I doing here? I've made a huge mistake." And part of that's because we're given all these inputs along the way of the way other people are going to define success, or what other people think we need to be, or should be, or must be, or my favorite, can't possibly be. And we take them as definitional rather than just random asides that people with no crystal ball plop on top of us. And they do this, we take them as definitional and they say, "Oh, I guess I should be a lawyer." And we create this path before we even have a frontal lobe, right? Before we even have the capacity to make good decisions, we're putting ourselves on a path based on other people's random anecdotal imaginations.
Mm-hmm. What's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Well, it's both the best and the hardest piece of advice I've ever gotten. And it's this: you're just not that important. And it was really hard advice to get at the time, because at the time I had just started my company. I had young children. I, have a husband who has a job that is quite inflexible. And I was involved in lots of local community and political activities. And so I really felt pretty important to all those things, like all the commitments I'd made within each of those buckets. And what this woman who had been a very big deal in the corporate world said to me was, "Listen, if you're building a company that's not so big that you can't, put your phone in the trunk of your car for an hour and take your kids out for ice cream after school, you're not building a really strong company, or you're kind of a micromanager." And if you're not able to leave your kids for the afternoon and go, on a work trip and let them grow up to be independent people, then you're kind of a bulldozer mom, not just the parachute mom jumping in, but you're the one who's actually not even letting them get in trouble in the first place, right? And she sort of outlined every part of my life and showed me because I was trying to be that important to every piece of my life, I wasn't in fact showing up fully for anything that really mattered to me. And so she asked me about all the things that I did, and I would explain that I was busy with clients here and I was busy with my kids there. And of course I had to cut all the carrots and I had to be the chairwoman of the school bake sale and all of this stuff. And she looked at me and she goes, "Well, which of those actually really matters?" And what I've realized is that because I was trying to be so important to every part of my life, I wasn't showing up for the places where I really was that important.
What great advice that is. And I can understand how difficult it is to hear that at the same time, because you do all these things and you're thinking, "Gosh, I feel like I'm really contributing. I feel pretty good about myself as far as importance goes."
And I was really contributing and I did feel really good about myself. But it turned out that what I was doing, I was mostly contributing to the cathedral to my own ego that I was building, my need to be that important. So, when somebody walks out of school and says, "Hey, the person who was going to chair the bake sale just had an emergency work meeting. Would you chair it for us tomorrow?" And you go, "Okay, right?" Like, it's not because they found you and they researched and they headhunted the perfect person for the job. You were just the closest proximate heartbeat. And that's not where we determine where our true value is. And so, I had a really great mentor once said to me, your kids are going to have a lot of do-overs in their life. They don't get the right internship, they have another one. They don't get into the right college, they can transfer. They don't get the right first job, you can, find another one. Like, there's a lot of opportunities for do-overs. But the one thing that we cannot do over with our children is good emotional health. She's like, that's your number one job. She said, everything else can work itself out, but your number one job is to get them from here to there emotionally healthy. And so when I think about the sucker punch of a bake sale ask, or the people stopping by my office saying, hey, you got a minute? Can I pick your brain? Can you just look at this one thing? Would you mind if I, stole your resources, right? Stole your time so that you can't show up for the thing where you are that important. You can't get them from here to there emotionally healthy. And so the impetus behind the book, this idea of how to ignore everyone, carve your own path, and live your best life, is to figure out what really matters to you. Where are you that important? How do you define success? And how do you make sure then that you show up there, you lean into that, instead of the way everyone else is trying to tell you should live your life?
Man, isn't that the truth? Because it can feel like you're being pulled 1,000 different ways if you're leaning into everything.
And I think this idea of lean in, right? This book by Sheryl Sandberg, which I read when it first came out and loved it, right? I was like, oh yeah, this is it. I leaned into everything. This makes so much sense. I'm going to do all the things for all the people all the time. And then I try to put it into practice. And what I realized was that it worked for me. It worked for her. I tried to throw all of my resources to growing my career as fast as I could. But I realized very quickly that even though I got to the top, I sort of looked around and I said, well, the top of what? And I realized that I didn't actually like the idea of leaning. And it wasn't because of the issue of the resources that she used. I know that was a big thing that people get upset about, but for me, it wasn't how she achieved success. It was how she defined success. Because I looked around one day and I said, well, actually, the top is not necessarily where I want to be, because that doesn't allow me then to be the very best person of myself and how I want my life to contribute to the world.
I think that it's so important to really define what those values are, because a lot of times people think, okay, I want to be the top whatever, salesperson, manager, VP, you name it, speaker, and without really realizing the time that it takes and a lot of things that they have to give up to be there.
Well, and I think they also don't stop for a minute and say, well, why do I want to do that? So if you want to be the top salesperson, maybe it's because you want to make lots and lots of money. And that's great. Okay, well then, so what does that money buy you? Is it money just for money, or is it money because you want to be financially independent, because you want to be able to send your kids to a different type of school, because you want to buy the beach house in the Maserati, because you want to contribute to a nonprofit that's furthering a cause you care about? I don't have any judgment about that. I think the person who's working towards the Maserati or working towards curing cancer is still doing something that is their purpose. But I think that when we just do it because we think the pursuit of bigger, better, more is success, then we leave not really feeling like it's attached to any sort of meaning. And understanding why we want the money, understanding why we want the title, understanding why we want the job in the company that has a certain level of brand prestige, how does that contribute to the kind of life that we're building? That's when it becomes meaningful, and that's when the hours that you put in towards getting there actually feel like they're real, as opposed to just being a grind.
Is that why you think purpose has become such a hot topic right now? Because people are looking to get to the bottom of what makes their life feel successful?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that are happening now. I think we've got a huge number of demographic shifts that are happening. We've got millennials who by 2025 are going to be 75% of the workforce. We have baby boomers who are retiring at 10,000 a day, and these are 1960s babies, right? They're looking at they had their teen years during the 60s, and they're thinking about MLK and RFK and JFK, and they want to have this one last go around, this last encore for purpose. And then, of course, there's my generation, the boomers, and we will not be forgotten no matter how much people want to forget us.
Sure.
And we are stuck between aging parents and younger children and all the different, community and political and faith-based activities that keep us very busy. And so we want our work to matter. And I think the conversation, even though we blame millennials for so much of what's happening in the workforce right now, millennials, as they are taking over the workforce at such huge numbers, are coming in as digital natives. This is the first generation that has grown up where they haven't been a different person at home than the person that they are at work. They've just always lived perfectly publicly on social media. So they've never done the code switching and the costume changing that the rest of us had, and they want their work to reflect who they are all the time. And so we're having this conversation about values that can be demonstrated through our work and whether or not our work matters in a way that we've never had before. And then you have the 2016 election, which really threw the country, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, into a conversation about, well, what do we really stand for? And in fact, you can see that evidenced in the 2018 Super Bowl, where usually, we get these hilarious, raunchy commercials with celebrities splayed out on top of car hoods eating sloppy burgers in bikinis. And instead of that, what we saw were companies falling over themselves, really trying to show their ethos, who they are as a company, the values that they care about, because people want to start manifesting their values through their spending dollars. And so we're seeing this really coming from the employees and from the consumer side. And so the conversation about, well, if we're all looking for purpose, if we're all looking for meaning, and if we spend the majority of our waking hours working, well, that's the place where we're going to manifest these values in the most in the most productive way, then we should really be doing it. So what does work really mean to me, and what does the work I'm doing really say about me?
Man, isn't that the truth? And I love how the millennials have really brought this whole discussion in regards to value, it seems, to the table more so than any other generation.
Yeah, and people give millennials get a bad rap all the time, and it's funny, as I'm traveling around the country giving speeches, and I speak to communities, to corporations, to colleges, to conventions, and every time at least one, if not like a dozen millennials will come up to me after I speak, and they'll say, thank you for finally saying something good about our generation. I mean, the oldest millennial right now is 37 years old. We talk about them as if they're eating Pop-Tarts and playing Minecraft in the, in their mom's basement. But, these people are managers of divisions right now. They have staff, they are leaders, and they're doing it in a way that's completely different than my generation did or generations before me did. But I think they are driving this conversation in a way that is so much more productive, and they're really creating language around a conversation that we just haven't known how to have before.
Oh, without a doubt, because before it was, all the, how you said, like with the Super Bowl, it's all the raunchy commercials, and, these companies were thinking that that's what people really wanted, where now the narrative has completely changed.
It's completely changed, and when I speak, I'll often talk about how it's changed. People are like, yeah, we hear a lot about this. But then when I tell them about the commercial in the Super Bowl, they're like, oh yeah, I remember those commercials, and they remember them because they meant something to them, because they were meaningful, because they struck an emotional chord.
Well, and this is probably a good way to kind of dovetail into this other question I have for you, because you talk about connection in your book. And why is connection so important?
So connection really answers the question of, if I called into work sick tomorrow, would anybody notice? Would anybody care? Would it matter? Connection is really how we know if we're just toiling away in the salt mines, or if the work that we're doing actually matters to that calling that we want to serve. So do I see a direct correlation between the work I'm doing on a daily basis and helping me to accomplish the goals that I want? We get so distracted with technology, and even though technology is great, we still have so many things coming at us on so much email that we're processing. We have this idea that getting to inbox zero is somehow nirvana, even though it only lasts for like 6 seconds until somebody sends you another email. I made the mistake once of getting to inbox zero, and I posted on social media. I was like, I did it, inbox zero. And within 10 minutes, 15 of my friends sent me an email going, ha, 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 you're not inbox zero anymore. So, we get so distracted. And I ask people to look at your calendar and look at your to-do list. And is there room in your calendar for your to-do list? And then look at the email box that you're using as your secondary to-do list. And is there room there? And when you look at your calendar, are the things on your calendar in direct pursuit of those goals that you want to reach in that calling? If your calling is a leader who inspires you, or a company that you want to build, or a family that you want to grow, or a bottom line that you'd like to enrich, are the things on your calendar, in your to-do list, in your email box, all the stuff that you're doing, are they connected to that calling?
Mm. Well, and how true is that? Because when you look at everything that we're being bombarded with, I mean, it can be so much and so overwhelming. I know with my inbox, it's a never ending to-do list, and so I look at this going, okay, I just kind of managing expectations at many points going, what is it possible to do? And, what gets tabled for another day.
Right. So all you're doing is you're treading water, but you're not swimming across the channel. You're not getting to where you want to get to. You're not drowning. So it feels good at the end of the day because, you're still breathing, but you didn't get anywhere. And, I'd rather run, I have a friend who has run like 20 marathons, and she trains for these marathons on a treadmill. She does all of the training on the treadmill. The only time she actually runs on the street is during the marathon. And I asked her once I would lose my mind. I think it would be, I don't know how you do a 5-hour training or 4-hour training run on a treadmill. And she said, no, she goes, it's amazing because when you get out there on the street, you're so excited to be moving forward that it never gets old. And I sort of feel like a little bit, some of us are training for the marathon by treading water. We're just not getting anywhere. So, we have to learn how to say no to things. And I love to say yes. I have a little bracelet that actually says say yes. I love saying yes because I believe that there's an adventure around every corner if you just look hard enough. So I don't like to say no. So I've tried to learn how to say yes to better things. And I say yes to something if I say, will this help me? It's as Machiavellian as it gets, I know, but you have to start somewhere, so why not there? Do I see myself on the other side of this project, this email, this assignment, this sucker punch of a bake sale ask? Do I see myself getting any closer to achieving my goals? Number 2, will it help someone else, right? Some tasks don't help. They don't pay us anything other than the psychic karma of helping someone. But usually along the way, we increase our network, we increase our knowledge, we put ourselves into places we might not necessarily be in. So, there are things that come out of it. Number 3, will it cause me joy? And yeah, we're going to Marie Kondo this all the way. If it's not going to help me and it's not going to help someone else, but I'm going to have a great time, why not? And then lastly, and this is the most important one of all, is there somebody better, more knowledgeable, more experienced, more proximate, with more available time, who should be doing this instead of me? And often, rather than building the ego, the cathedral to our ego's own need to help, right, the sort of short-term happy place, we need to do the hard yards to help solve the bigger problem. And usually what that means is saying, I would love to help, but I'm actually not the right person. What needs to happen is for you to have somebody with X, Y, and Z experience or network or knowledge helping you. Let me think for a couple minutes if I know anybody, and I'll let you know if anyone comes to mind.
And so that's great because you offer, solutions, you're, setting expectations, you're able to say no and do it gracefully and still maintain control of your calendar.
That's right.
And what a big thing. There's this one thing in your book, you talk about how action doesn't equal impact. And I love that. Because a lot of time we get so caught up in all this busyness.
We do. And it's the same idea. Somebody asks you to do something, you're like, oh, okay. Or, this is actually the topic of the TEDx talk that I gave. And the title of the talk is Stop Asking, How Can I Help? Which is, kind of provocative. But I had gotten so upset by watching so many disasters, natural disasters and horrible school shootings and things like that. And it was when a gunman killed 20 children and 6 adults at Sandy Hook Elementary School, and 67,000 teddy bears descended on this tiny town of Newtown, Connecticut, that I really lost my mind. Because at the end of the day, I wanted to know what happened to the 67,000 teddy bears, and it felt really good for us to do it. We all got really busy sending teddy bears, and I don't want people to think that I don't think teddy bears are a good thing. I think they come from the best part of our humanity. They are a noble impulse, and they are lovely. just like donating a pint of blood or giving money for an extra bed in a homeless shelter, any of those things are good things and we should do them. But we shouldn't be satisfied that the busy equals impact. We also need to be doing the work that's going to get us to the long-term, the long-term institutions of change. And so, the money that was spent on sending all these teddy bears, I thought could have better been used for grief counseling and for common sense gun control and for better mental health access and all the other things that, the majority of the American population know are the right things to do. And so for me, I started thinking, well, if that's what we do when we see these big disasters, well, what do we do in our own lives? And I started realizing that we get so busy doing the things like, well, let me just empty my inbox, or, let me do all the little things, but I'm not actually looking at the one big thing. So it really comes down to this question of, what are your goals? If your goals are to have a stronger body, to have a stronger business, to have a stronger family, are the things that you're doing today fitting into any of those buckets? And if they're not, then you're just busy, but you're not finding impact.
Well, and that's such a good analogy for people to really understand, because of course the teddy bears with Sandy Hook, I mean, you think, gosh, we want to do something that's heartfelt, but at the same time, you look at impact and it's like, how's that making a difference in today's narrative?
Right. I mean, we turn around and we say, well, why did that happen again? Well, it happened again because we incinerated 66,400 teddy bears. I mean, it just, like, at the end of the day, the teddy bears helped those children, maybe. I hope. I'd like to think so. But there was also a lot of waste that was there, because we asked the question, how can I help? And we put ourselves right in the center. If I am the solution, then I have to define the problem through me, right? Mm-hmm. How can I help? Then it's a different question than asking what needs to happen. And what needs to happen takes us out of being the solution and helps us actually look for and find and serve the solution.
Mm. Well, Laura, we can talk for hours on your book. I mean, my goodness, you're such a great resource. I think you really have it right in Limitless. There's so many great tips in here and just good information. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
So there's a couple different ways. The first is if they'd like to take a quiz and understand where they're stuck and what might be holding them back from being limitless, they can go to limitlessassessment.com. And it's about a 60-question quiz, so it's pretty intense. It takes about 15 minutes to take, and it'll give them some sense of how much calling, control, contribution, and connection they want in their lives and how much they actually currently have, and then help them see some ways to get more of whichever ones that they want more of. So that's at limitlessassessment.com. And then all my good friends call me LGO, so they can find me at Hey LGO on all the socials and at heylgo.com. And the book, of course, is available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, anywhere fine books are sold.
Oh, yes. I mean, they can pick it up anywhere. If it's not there, they can ask for it to be ordered because it's probably sold out.
That's right. I actually went to a bookstore, the local bookstore this weekend, and I looked for it and it wasn't there. And I asked anonymously, I asked the person behind the desk if they had it, and she was like, we had 5 of those and they sold within an hour. And I was like, yes. Sweet. And then she was like, why? Do you know the book? And then I think they realized, because I was being such a dork, that I wrote the books. I outed myself there.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much. It's been really great fun.
Well, thank you, Laura. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and, of course, to talk about your new book, Limitless. Again, if you'd like to connect with Laura, you can at laura-gassner-otting.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.